82% of Americans who bought a house in 2023 and 2024 regret buying their house.
If you buy a house in 2025, make sure you do your due diligence so you're not like me and wasting $10,000 to $15,000 after only being here for 3 days.
If I could turn back time, I would never have bought. I would have just stayed a renter.
So the more I go on TikTok, the more videos pop up of people regretting buying their homes, especially if you bought while the prices were increasing during COVID. Some people went way over their heads when it came to the mortgage prices, not knowing the maintenance that comes along with being a homeowner, or their houses falling apart right after they signed on the dotted line. We could talk about adjustable rate mortgages as well, people's mortgage rates increasing because of escrow, increasing HOA prices. I mean, there's a million reasons. So we're going to go over a lot of examples today along with some comments from you guys. So if you want to be featured on a future video, leave it in the comments down below. But I think we should start off with this statistic.
82% of Americans who bought a house in 2023 and 2024 regret buying their house. Not only that, but 44% of recent buyers had to take on additional debt just to maintain their lifestyle. And 43% of them have struggled to make mortgage payments on time.
So I mean, that statistic, 82%, is wild. And we have a whole host of advice from tons of different people on the internet of what you should be doing right now in 2025, because it seems like for years now, people have been waiting for the housing market crash and the prices have only really gone up, along with the interest rates, by the way. So some people had some FOMO, ended up buying in 2023, 2024, maybe barely scraping by on the payments, and they already have regrets and are on the verge of foreclosure. Now, it really does depend on where you live. Some areas are starting to come back down to earth somewhat. I would still say Florida's wildly overpriced, even though we are seeing statistics that the housing prices are going down along with rent, but other places still continue to rise, or at least stay stagnant on the average $430,000 home now, and we're not even talking about anything going wrong in the house after purchasing.
So you want to buy a house in 2025? Let me give you some knowledge. Whatever anybody says, it's always the right time to buy if the price is right. But sometimes when the price is right, there's stuff that comes along with it. I closed on this house last Friday. On Saturday, the entire HVAC unit went out. We thought that it was just the fan motor, had that replaced, and they came back after it did not work, and the entire thing has to be replaced. That would be $10,000 right there that you're looking at. And this goes out for inspectors. Pay for an inspection, but be wary who you pay to do your inspection, because some inspectors are not as thorough as they should be, and as long as the thermostat turns on and there's heat coming out of the vents, all is well. If you buy a house in 2025, make sure you do your due diligence so you're not like me and wasting $10,000 to $15,000 after only being here for 3 days.
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure if he didn't get a home inspector at all or ended up getting a really bad one. Maybe he was recommended by the realtor, which most of the time is not really the greatest thing to do. And now he has a $10,000 to $15,000 bill on top of his home right now. I don't think too many people are waiving inspectors now and paying over asking in 2025 like they were years ago. But I do think it is very important to do your own research on inspectors. We've seen a host of stories. Of course, being a really bad idea if you waive it altogether. Using inspectors that are in the pockets of the realtors that are selling the house, they both get kickbacks. They just walk through the house saying that everything's completely fine, even though it's not. And we've even heard stories of people getting the highest Google reviewed inspector in their area, and it's still not working out, and the house starts falling apart right after they purchased. I don't really know what the solution is in the end, because it's kind of almost all you could do, unless you become a home inspector yourself and inspect the house before you buy it. But there are some things you're just not going to know to look for, and unfortunately you could be in a similar situation to this guy. We could look at a couple of the comments. Inspectors should be financially responsible for a certain amount of time after they pass inspection on a house, and if something breaks down. New houses are junk, work ethic is gone. I'm not sure if he bought a brand new build, but we'll see one in a second right after a comment from one of you guys. I own a painting company and I do a lot of new builds. I'd never buy a new build. The amount of corners that get cut on a $1 million home is mind-boggling. Floors are plastic, your walls are made of paper and chalk dust, not to mention the luxury countertops, which are much more fancy than composite material. The appliances and fixtures are the cheapest they could be. The drywall is never finished properly, which makes the paint job look terrible. We've gone over this a few times on this channel, and we have another perfect example right here.
Yes, I took my chores off. This is always the case. Bathroom is nice. Yeah, all of this is left unfinished. So here we have another bay window. Remember what I said about checking under. All of this is left unfinished and exposed. Wide open. Here we have more gaps, big enough for a rat to fit in. Some of the downspouts are damaged and they're draining near the property. Saturation built up on the sides of the home. We have an outlet near the toilet and it should be GFCI protected, but it's not. We have some grout separation. Not only is the cover missing for this fixture, but it's also crooked. No control at the switch, and nobody can reach those pull chains. We have separations at the cabinetry. This door is squeaking. Gaps at the front entryway. Light separation is some of the trim work around the home.
And this guy just keeps going on and on with this one single house. How many times did they cut corners? Separation already? Hiding the finishes if you didn't look for it? Now, he didn't say the price on this home, but I could almost guarantee you it's going to be a ton of money. Exactly what the previous comment was describing, with all of the luxury amenities and materials, which aren't actually the case in the end. And I mean, maybe you'll get lucky and it won't start breaking down immediately like the earlier clip we saw with the HVAC, but you know none of these houses are actually built to last.
Most people don't realize this, but owning a home today comes with a whole lot of hidden expenses. And I'm talking about property taxes, insurance, maintenance, HOAs or homeowners associations. Bankrate says that's over $18,000 a year on the average before your mortgage. So people are paying 40% more just to own the same home that they could rent, sometimes from the same builder. And here's the kicker. In many cities, you can rent the same property for hundreds, sometimes even thousands less per month. And the spread between rent and ownership cost is widening. This is not sustainable.
I've talked about it before with my own experiences where I currently live. I'm renting a townhouse right now because the rent has not caught up with the single family home prices where I live. There's still somebody down the street trying to sell the same type of townhouse that I'm in right now renting, and with a almost $100,000 down payment. It is still almost $900 more a month than I currently am renting, just to be able to own this townhome 30 years down the line. And I know many people always get angry. Renting is just throwing money into a fire, or you're paying off somebody else's mortgage, and I understand that. I do want to end up being a homeowner one day, but like that clip said, it's just more feasible to be able to rent here for a couple years and maybe move out of town to an area with a cheaper cost of living than to try to buy this property and pay off the mortgage. Here we have another quick clip of people's mortgages jumping even higher. I mean, this one's insane.
I just got some crazy news. My mortgage just went from $4,500 to $6,050, and it'll be effective March the 1st.
I think everyone had the same thought when we look at the comment section. The $4,500 would have blew my wig back, let alone the $6,000, $4,500 a month. But if you looked into this a little bit more, it was because of escrow, and we've gone over this previously, and it's still happening to people today. And the next clip will show you how to look out for some of this if you are about to close on a home. But we could read some more comments, and this is why I refuse to sell my home with a house payment of $554. I'm stuck on $4,500. $4,500 was crazy from the beginning, and I'm tripping about ours going from $2,100 to $2,500, but $6,000. But here's what people aren't reading into when it comes to the mortgage contract.
All right, another new build that's going to be subject to payment shock. I'm going to tell you what to look out for. This one just got closed 2 weeks ago. I asked the owner if I could share it, blocked out the information. So here we go. Great interest rate on a new build, 30-year fixed FHA loan. $1,437 is the principal and interest. That part does not change. You're going to come down into the escrow. Projected payments, principal and interest, that matches. Mortgage insurance, separate, but that checks out, makes sense. Escrow account, $168. That's supposed to pay my taxes and insurance. Go down to the next box. So that they tell you estimated payment is $1,732.70, total of all these. Go down to this next box. Estimated taxes, insurance, and assessments is $526. Where is that in your payment? Where is that in your estimated payment? If you scooch over here, you'll see it says, oh, only some of the property taxes are included in this estimate above.
So if you don't read into the contract a little bit more, you won't realize this. And that's exactly what these companies want. They want to make the monthly payments look as low as possible, and then out of nowhere you get blindsided with an extra $500 a month or $1,500 from the previous clip. And it is honestly just wrecking people right now. We have another comment from one of you guys. Fear of missing out, all it is. Unless you have 3+ children and were relocated recently by a company you work for who will be assisting, there's zero reason to rush out and buy anything. That's definitely what we've been seeing over the past couple years. Some thought the prices were just going to consistently be rising very quickly forever. And that's where we get the stat that 80% of people regret buying over the past few years. And to be honest, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Trying to find possibly a very good deal, which is extremely difficult, but I'd truly just rather wait it out than to jump on the bandwagon with the fear of missing out and buy something that I'll end up regretting later. Another issue that I'm starting to see that's already affecting people but will probably get worse in the future are these types of ads that are up on screen and how much you could afford with very little down payment. I'm not saying we're in the exact same position as the '08 financial crisis where people were getting loans that they had absolutely no business in getting, but when you start seeing stuff like this, there's some red flags that are popping up in my head. You only need 1% down payment to buy home thanks to this program from Rocket Mortgage. And you could see the down payment are $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 for these home prices. If you could only afford a 1% down payment, I'm going to be honest, you cannot afford the home. You're almost guaranteed to foreclose. So just seeing this kind of stuff, this was an Instagram ad, is definitely not a good sign. Then we could take a look at this video saying how much money you would need to make to be able to afford a average home price in the US right now.
This is the amount of money you need to be making to afford a $420,000 home, which is the average price of a home in America right now. A $420,000 average sale price. Let's go off of $4,000 a year for taxes. Let's go off of about $1,000 a year for homeowners insurance. So if you put down about $15,000, you can get yourself a nice shiny FHA mortgage. All right, awesome. So if we use a rate of 6% with a 7% APR for an FHA mortgage, you figure it's going to be about, let's just say $2,400 a month for principal and interest. And then between these two, it's going to be about $400-ish a month for taxes and insurance. Now, FHA has mortgage insurance, so let's say another $180 a month for mortgage insurance. So that's going to be about $2,980 a month for an FHA mortgage, all in. Now, from that, you figure it's going to be about, times that by 2, or at $6,000 a month, and FHA requires a little bit more than that. So let's call it about an $80,000 a year salary. So as it shows, $420,000 out of the average price in America. If you did an FHA mortgage, you'd be a little less than $3,000 a month all in. But you would need to make as a family at least $80,000 a year to be able to afford this, and that doesn't even take into account if you have any debt.
So if you are someone with the average credit card debt of around $7,000 per person in the US, it'll probably be even worse for you, but we could take a look at the comments. $80,000 a year bring home is like $4,600 a month after tax. You cannot afford that house and won't be able to eat, because I guess you'd be able to get a loan with that, a $3,000 a month mortgage, when you're actually bringing home only $4,600. 66% of your take-home pay? I know the very safe ratio at around 25% of your income is very far out of reach for a vast majority of people nowadays, but this one seems extremely dangerous. For new homeowners, this is severely underestimated. Mortgage insurance is the biggest scam in the world, that's all I have to say. Casually 45+% of that income, please no one do that. $1,000 insurance, that guy did not agree. Paying that much on a home, only making $80,000 is crazy. $3,000 a month for your house only to make $6,600 a month before tax shouldn't even be approved, but it seems like that's what's happening now, because I've started to look myself and what I would possibly be approved for, and I was allowed to get a loan for way more than I definitely should be. So again, I don't want to say we're in the exact same position as the '08 financial crisis, but when you start seeing videos like this and advertisements with only a couple percent down, it doesn't really look too good to me, let alone the shape of any of these houses you're trying to buy are actually in.
It was probably mentioned, but the house is falling apart in 40 different places simultaneously, so just make sure you stay on top of that. Just sign here to say you probably can't afford what you're getting yourself into. Sign right here to say that you're probably going to get lead poisoning from living here. I mean, we didn't check, but like statistically, it's not looking good. Keep in mind the closing costs are $100 billion, but you guys are good for it, so no worries. So I know you guys are aware that the house is being sold as is and kind of being sold as will be, since they are taking it apart as they leave, kind of disassembling it like a Lincoln log. So just as a reminder, no attic, no basement, no windows, no bathroom, no closets. So really quaint. You guys made a really good choice. I mean, it has such great bones. And what I mean by that are the bones we found under the floorboards in several of the bedrooms. It is in the contract. Everything is broken. I'm pretty sure we said that already, right? In the meantime, don't think about the sellers too hard because they will pull the deal and go with someone else.
Now, of course, this was a skit and over-exaggerated, but as we'll see in a little bit, I have some examples. You're kind of getting on the verge of this being reality. Some of the comments, no yard, but property taxes will be $15,000 a year. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, but the 2 beds are in a shed, and the 1 bath is a garden hose. Gaslighting myself into thinking it's just cozy. It has good bones, though. Oh, man. But we have a comment from one of you guys with a very different story. I just closed on a house. I've been looking for 3 years. The inspector caught a lot, some major and mostly minor. I counter-offered with the repairs I wanted. The sellers waited till midnight before the 10-day window to tell me they weren't making any repairs, so I canceled the contract. They came back 2 hours later agreeing to all my terms and threw in the washer, dryer, and fridge. Don't fall in love, take your time. So we're going to take that advice and throw it right out the window for the next couple clips because the fear of missing out or just doing it on a whim seems to be a little bit more common than I thought.
I'm assuming this is your first house, right?
Yes, very first.
Okay, and that's great. You're buying it before the average person buys their first house in the United States. You're not in a great position. Was this the time to buy a house?
I mean, it's cheaper than my rent was.
What happens if you have to replace your roof? What happens if you have a big leak? What if a frozen pipe bursts?
Yeah, it was just a really impulsive choice.
How do you impulsively buy a house?
Well, my lease was running out on the rental, and I didn't really put any thought into, like, if I wanted to renew it. Like, it was just really quick. I decided it was time to buy a house. I only spent about a month looking.
My first house, I didn't have a single piece of new furniture in there. In fact, I didn't get a single piece of new furniture until I got my third. That was the very first time I bought a new piece of furniture.
Yeah.
Ever.
So I don't have to say that this decision probably wasn't the best if she's on the financial audit, but just making one of the most important and expensive choices of your life on a whim cannot be a good idea. I bet if we watched this entire episode, we could see how much debt she's in and how much she spent on new furniture probably, but we could look at a couple of the comments. I recently got a new roof, $24,000. Average age of a first-time home buyer is 38. That's wild. How do you impulsively buy a house? My first house had no furniture. It was dinner on the floor. We've seen that, people being house poor, basically just having enough for the down payment and not being able to furnish it. Very scary situation in my opinion. My house cost me $100,000 in repair last year. Home ownership is not all sunshine and rainbows. Here we have another clip of a woman regretting it as she's already locked in.
I'm in the process of buying my very first house as a 28-year-old with no kids. I'm not married. I am in a relationship. I close in 7 days and I feel like I should be super excited right now and happy, but in reality, I am terrified and I am so nervous and I want to back out, but it is literally way too late in the process for me to back out. And I missed my last chance to do that. And so now I am just like sitting here and regretting my decision, but we're just gonna have to make it work. We're gonna have to figure it out. And yeah, I'm gonna be house poor. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna afford food. I don't know how I'm gonna afford gas. I don't know what I'm doing. Who let me do this? Who let me do this?
I don't know, honestly. I'm just glad I'm not in the same situation. Not even in the house yet and instantly regretting it, not knowing what she's gonna do for food. I mean, it's crazy. Here's another one of the pre-COVID comments. Bought my house at 26 and was house poor for 2 years. Bought for $309,000 and it's worth $730,000 today. We're actually gonna go right into an example that's very similar to this and is exactly the reason why I moved out of New Jersey. I never wanted to own a home there because of how ridiculously expensive it is, especially for what you're getting. Only 10 days on market, listed for $525,000 and sold for $640,000. Original owner since 1967, so you know this was bought for virtually nothing. Township of Washington, Bergen County, New Jersey. Now we could go into the comment section. Family didn't put $1 into the place and sells it for $650,000. Boomer mentality. Then the creator responds, buyer sees its potential and future value. Great investment. This is a great great investment at $650,000 without having to do all the work to update it. Adding on top of the high property tax just to live in New Jersey, $650,000 for an insanely outdated house is highway robbery. Purchased for 3 blueberries in 1967, 0 upgrades since, and sold for $640,000 is mental. Luckiest generation to ever live. And we got a part 2 for some more New Jersey homes.
Whoever's buying this house, I think this house is going to be house flipped. This house has been abandoned for I don't know how long, but there's been like raccoons and turkey vultures going inside a giant massive hole. Like the wood is rotten and they're just going to cover it up. I've been watching this house. This is like my entertainment, but good luck to whoever's buying a new house because it's a money pit, I believe. It's molded everywhere. Jesus.
So this is going to be a perfect example of home buyer's remorse for whoever buys this house, literally just covering it up and hiding it. Some of the comments, this should be illegal, so insane. You got to warn the prospective buyers because the sellers are definitely not going to do that. They want as much money as possible. As a former roofer, trust me, owners know and refuse to spend an extra $8,000 to get the rafters replaced. Every time I make one of these kinds of videos, it scares me even more to purchase a home in the future. Another comment from you guys, I hate when people say the value of my home has doubled, so I'm doing good. This also means if you sell your home, the next home you buy will be double the cost it would have been previously. So even matching interest rates will still result in a loss for your finances. You kind of have to get ready to move to a different area that will maybe be the next up and coming town or city, because if you move to a place very close to you, maybe even in the same town, it's very unlikely you're going to get the same doubling of value. But at the end of the day, I guess homes are looked at more of an investment instead of actually a place to live now.
Again, Dad? The great American dream is home ownership has become a business. You never own your home. Ever.
I mean, he's right. Even if you pay off your mortgage, see what happens if you don't pay property taxes. Nobody ever actually owns their home. But up next, we definitely have someone that looks like they watched a lot of the real estate gurus, especially at the beginning of COVID, trying to make it look like it was so easy to buy investment properties, be able to do very minimal work and just print money. A lot of the time, that's not the case, especially right now in 2025.
I thought I was buying a rental property. What I actually bought was a nightmare in disguise. The listing said needs TLC. It was cheap, it was ugly, and I was confident. This would be my first real estate win. I pictured a quick flip, rented it out in 30 days, easy cash flow. The moment I stepped inside, it smelled like regret. Mold in the walls, soft floors, and a toilet that had been used but never flushed. Turns out the house had been vacant for years with broken pipes hiding behind every wall. Therefore, my budget doubled before I even started demo. Contractors quit, supplies were delayed, and I was bleeding money just keeping the lights on. But the worst part? Halfway through the renovations, my contractor vanished. Took my deposit and disappeared. I stood in the empty living room thinking, what did I just do?
So this type of example adds on to me not being interested in doing this at all. I'm overall not very interested in real estate as a whole, but being a landlord, having several different properties and making money from that, I know there are tons of examples online of people who genuinely have been doing that for a long time and they make millions. But it's definitely not as easy as it looks. There are plenty of horror stories like this, and I just don't want to be a part of it at all. We have another comment from one of you guys. When our AC broke, every quote we got was accompanied by a big push to finance emergency repairs. We chose to get window units out of Facebook Marketplace for $100 each, lived with that for a year, then got the AC and furnace replaced with cash in full. Some of these aren't home issues, they're just choices, which I do definitely understand as well, but it doesn't take away the fact, especially when you're talking about modern new construction, the quality is just absolutely terrible. I mean, this clip, it's a $4 million home.
New construction inspection on this $4 million home. Starting off right where this trim meets the brick veneer, have some gaps, need to get that all sealed up. This is at the back corner of the foundation. We do have a couple nice cracks that have popped up already. In the master shower, we do have a few shower heads. The hand sprayer has good pressure, first shower head has good pressure, but then it's pretty much non-existent at the last one. Water's just trickling out even when the other two are shut off. Within the same shower stall, we do have this little niche, and the tile is not installed across the top or the bottom of this. This is in one of the many guest bathrooms in this house. Of course, we should have GFCI protection on the outlet, which this one does not. This is a little bar area that's right off of the kitchen. We should have some trim below these cabinets. As you can see, it just doesn't look too pretty underneath there without it. In the attic, we're missing the majority of the insulation. The little bits that are up here now are just covering the pipes for the fire suppression system, and then the rest of it is just bare drywall. So of course, got to get that installed.
This is for a $4 million house. They were too lazy to insulate the rest of it or put tile in one of the showers. I mean, it's not catastrophic structural problems, but for $4 million, I want my house to be absolutely perfect, and it just looks lazy. So much so that when you see listings like this online, the realtor agents or the owners who put up the listing in the first place are too lazy to even write the paragraphs themselves.
So this is like the 5th time I've seen a Zillow description like this. You got it. Here's a casual, upbeat, human-sounding, SEO-optimized listing description that's under 2,000 characters and RMLS Fair Housing compliant. Now, a bit of an oversight by the listing agent, but a good example of when hiring an agent, ask them, are they going to leverage AI tools like ChatGPT or rely on them?
What bugs me even more is that people relying on AI to do something as simple as write a paragraph is when people can't even bother to do the bare minimum and actually proofread before posting. Did they even read it before they posted it? I mean, there were a lot of comments like that. Just really unbelievable to me. Kind of looks like this would also happen with new construction, but we're going to end off this video with someone regretting owning her condo.
I'm gonna keep it 100%. Home ownership is not what I expected it to be. Honestly, if I had my time back, I would never in a million years have bought a condo. I regret it so much. It's one of the biggest regrets of my life. Renting, you have that like stress-free, no worry in the world. If something in my condo breaks, it's my responsibility to fix that issue. If I'm renting, I just call up my property manager, landlord, whoever, and just say, hey, this is broken, this appliance isn't working. It's their responsibility to send somebody in and fix that ASAP. When you're a homeowner, you're the one that has to do the research on finding someone to come in. You're the one that has to take the time and make sure everything's working smoothly. It's such a headache. I'll give you an example. Today, I had the unit below my condo say that they have a leak in their washroom. It's my responsibility to call a plumber, contact the property manager, and make sure it's fixed. And when you're a renter, that's not my problem. Like, my landlord will fix that problem. I'm paying rent, and that's a wrap. That's where my responsibility finishes. If I could turn back time, I would never have bought. I would have just stayed a renter. And honestly, the extra money that I would have had, I don't have to pay property taxes, I don't have to pay for repairs. Extra money, I would have poured it into investments. And future me would have been a lot better off. Just something to keep in mind, home ownership the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
So again, this is very divisive, the renting versus owning, but when it comes to new construction builds, it almost seems a little bit better to not be the owner. Looks like there's a much higher chance of things falling apart, having problems, and then at the end of the day, it's not your problem. And I know I'm going to get a whole bunch of people who don't like that I just said that, even though I'm definitely not against home ownership. You just have to be extremely careful in this climate. So at least for me right now, I'm waiting it out, hopefully to find a diamond in the rough, which is becoming increasingly more difficult when you're looking on Realtor or Zillow, any of those sites, on top of seeing all of these horror stories on social media. But that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. YouTube thinks you'll like this video popping up on screen right now, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, and I'll talk to you guys later.